It was a great morning, excellent content and exceptional speakers. Every speaker all hit home runs in my book. Lots of great information to unpack. So I hope you guys were taking plenty of notes. Patty Covington and Eric Johnson with Hudson and Cook had tons of great information, all the updates to check with your legal counsel on. And I was very surprised about some of the updates, to be honest. I sure hope auto dealers are paying attention here. This is not something to take lightly. And Carrie Wise with AutoFi, she is so passionate. What a great message. Creating that same buying experience online as you do in dealership. It's the little steps you take that make a big difference. Don't forget that just because you're making more profit than you ever had in history doesn't mean you want to stop growing. You got to keep your foot on that gas pedal. Ken Hill with 700 credit discusses credit first versus credit last. What is that difference between a soft pull and a hard inquiry? He covers that. Soft pull gives us an idea of what the customer likely qualifies for earlier on, online, or even quoting terms up at the desk. And then Frank McKenna, point predictive. He offered excellent advice. Fraud is at an all-time high. Over 5,000 fake employers in the United States. Do your homework to make sure POI is accurate. Why dealers must implement a consistent process. Remember that process to mitigate this fraud. Make sure you're validating everything. Leave no stone unturned. And don't think about going over that line to sell one car. Makes sense. Now, Stephen Apicella, DX Strategies, well, never a dull moment with him. He talks about the benefit of the digital life cycle. It's not about that micro moment of the menu. It's about getting in front of the customer before, during, and after that sale. A reoccurring customer is the lifeline of a prosperous dealership. Now, Bob Farlow, I just love him. He tells it the way it is, down to earth as you can get. The auto world is changing. Those that figure it out sooner rather than later will be able to thrive in this competitive marketplace. Josh Latisis with Foundation Auto Colorado, he sure doesn't sugarcoat it either. If dealers aren't training, they're setting themselves up for failure. Talent is critical to gaining the edge. Digital retailing is here, but it likely won't get to completely digitalizing this workflow for a while anyway. But still, the little steps you take will matter today. So we're in for a great afternoon with our featured speakers. And here's an idea of the agenda. Jim Messick, he's the corporate director of the BettenBaker Auto Group. He will address what are some of the ways to be a differentiator. The market will normalize. Training your people is essential to stay competitive. Gina Cocking, Colonnade Advisors. They discuss mergers and acquisitions at an all-time high, historical high, she says. Small and independent agents will need to be sure that they stay relevant and are on top of their game and are keeping their dealers up to date with modern retailing processes. The days of taking the dealer out to play golf may not be the deciding factor anymore in keeping that account. Too much is at stake. Cheryl Piabtedosi, ADI, Automotive Dealership Institute Facilitator. Well, she discusses continuing education. The basics and F&I fundamentals are still key to success. ADI offers auto dealers the best F&I candidates. Their graduates receive a diploma from Northwood University. Quit hiring the same repurposed F&I candidates and expecting a different result. You guys, we got to start thinking outside the box here. Speaking of which, Joe Caruso, Do It Today, discusses turnover is at an all-time high too. How to reduce it and be a lot more profitable. Managers must be held accountable to those hiring decisions. And does your employee have an adequate or good job description? What about your pay plan? Veronica Dunford, Executive Vice President, Strategic Partnership, discusses the importance of empowering others. Women in automotive retail make great F&I candidates and how to attract, train, and retain more women and give them the roadmap for a success. Certainly going to be a candid conversation here. Lyamen Savy, 321 Ignition. This lady, well, she's savvy, and she discusses mobile readiness. Why dealers must do a better job turning their website mobile friendly will capture more leads and the likelihood of capturing more credit applications, which, by the way, means better leads. I'm positive you're going to enjoy this afternoon and get a lot from this lineup of speakers. So, if you would, give me a second to kick off Jim Messick with BettenBaker Auto Group. Here we are, Jim Messick, and I want to thank you so much for being on the F&I Master Series Forum, the digital age. And again, you're Director of Operations for BettenBaker Auto Group. So, to get things started, if you wouldn't mind, share with our dealers and viewers who you are, your background, and how you got to where you are today.
Sure.
Thanks.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be able to discuss some views with you. I've been in the car business or retail. Well, I say the car business. I grew up in the car business. My dad out in New York. My dad was running a Chevrolet store in Albany, New York, and just loved the business, even as early on as 10, 11 years old, running around the showroom and studying my brochures, and because that's what I wanted to do. And went all the way through, went to Northwood, and liked out in Michigan and liked the area, and ended up staying out here. And I walked into a dealership one day, and in 1991, 92, met a man by the name of Wayne Wedding, and I said, where can I start and where can I finish? And he had told me, and it was, I told the speech the other day, and he told me you could start as a salesperson and as an owner. And, I made it all the way through that one particular dealer group, and started as a salesperson in 2019. Actually in 2000 and let's see here, 13, became a partner in the group, and then got out in 2019, and now I'm on the second half of my career.
Awesome. Well, you've been around a lot, and I certainly appreciate that. So you have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to automotive retail. You've been there, you've done it, you own it.
Seen a lot.
Well, look, I mean, I know you do. So I am so happy that you made the decision to participate with the F&I Master Series Forum.
Sure.
We need a lot more dealer participation because that's where it's at. That's the heartbeat of the dealership. And, that's the knowledge I want to tap into. And I know our top professionals want to tap into it as well. Those people who refuse to settle for the status quo. So that's the kind of people I want to be around, and I'm sure that's the people you want to be around.
This business has evolved, and again, growing up in the business in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and each one of those decades is thrown us a curveball and been something different. And the biggest thing that I learned along the way is the idea of what a salesperson or a sales manager is. We're getting away from that stigma of, the gentleman, the salesperson comes in and he gets breakfast, and then he waits on a customer, and then he goes to lunch, and then we're getting away from that because now, obviously, as dealer groups are buying up people, the customer experience is what we're really focusing on now. And there's so many aspects of that customer experience. You'll see a lot of the single point dealers, and even small groups, 2-3 stores, are selling out now because they have not evolved into what we're doing right now in the industry. And customer has always been first. And if you have not evolved into those types of things and grasped, that it was always, again, I grew up in, like I said, in the 80s and 90s. There's no window stickers, in the 80s, and it was there's a price, you don't like it, get out. Well, you do that now, and with social media, you get crushed the same day that you would do something crazy like that. So you have to embrace a lot of things right now. And again, customer, satisfaction is number one. And if you don't embrace that, one thing that my dad had always told me, it's not a number on a piece of paper, it's whether or not a customer comes back and does business with it. And he had said that back in the 80s. And that still holds true to this day, because you can come out with whatever metrics that you come out with. Every manufacturer has their own, and you can, do what you need to do to ask for scores. But at the end of the day, it's whether or not a customer comes back and does business with you. As to, I have a pretty decent following of guests that still call me. One of my stints, as most of the people that are probably watching this, I've gone through the Disney Institute. And then we hired the Disney, and it made such an impact on me that we hired the Disney Institute to actually come to our stores.
Awesome. Wow.
And, because it's one of those, and the one thing that always stuck to me is, in dealing with the public or dealing with guests, is it's not my fault, but it is my problem.
Yep.
And if you can get that, into your head, that is the underlying theme of whether it be a service customer or whether it be a sales customer, and you put, that role reversal, and you put that, in their shoes, it isn't their fault, but it is now your problem. So we need to figure out a way to get to a solution. So
it is about, and Walt Disney is a great way of pointing out that relationship and experience, because you got to make it a terrific experience for it to stick, right? It's got to be something special.
Why do people go back? Yeah. So, by changing the customer experience, and now, you got to look at what happens, when people want to come to your dealership, they look at your Google reviews. So I know in our group of 21, about ready to become 23 stores.
Congratulations.
From Chris Baker on down, we have such a strong push to make sure that our Google reviews are on everybody's not going to write you a perfect review. And when they're not, then we have to be, proactive instead of reactive, and actually go and call the guest and say, what did we do wrong? Where did we miss the mark? So that we don't repeat that same type of action that gave us the bad Google review. And again, you don't grow with the amount of growth that Chris has gotten, based upon, doing, having bad practices. So that is an important thing from Chris right on down. If it's important to him, it's important for everybody, and it should be. So, what
do you say about, some of these guys, I guess, they have the same old, status quo mentality. I keep doing what I've been doing, and I've been very successful, especially, since this COVID hit. I mean, more dealers than, I will say, a lot of dealers have been more profitable than ever before. Do you see that they will keep up with where they're at? Will they sustain that performance?
Well, what you'll find is, even pre-COVID, to answer your question, is if they keep doing the same old, then they're getting passed and bought out. Because again, there's so many things that have happened in this business, from bank crashes to trucker strikes to plant shutdowns to again, and I say bankruptcy not as much for the banks, but for General Motors, for all the makes. And if we've come out as dealers, we've found a way to make it through there, whether it be high gas prices, whether it be 23% interest rates, whether it be whatever case might have come, we've, as dealers, have figured out a way. The people that did not evolve, so let's go back pre-COVID, okay? So people that did not evolve and get on the internet, okay? And again, I'm going way back, and just said, nope, Saturday, that's the big day. We're going to do back page of the newspaper, and didn't embrace the digital age. I know very early on, I started going to the digital dealer classes. I've always attended the NADA show, but I've gone to the digital dealer classes because I needed to evolve as quickly as that space was evolving. And again, I'm still old school in a lot of things that I do, but if you even just embrace some of the things that you see at Dealer Digital, and still, now I watch it online and don't miss one, but if you didn't embrace that, then you were getting bought out. And there's still a lot of those, and I don't want to, those single point stores that aren't doing anything. And yeah, they just came off of 2021, the best year profitability wise, but they got bought up in 17, 18, 19, which were unit wise were the three best, years in the car business. But when you're talking about what COVID did, COVID came so quickly that we were not ready. Again, we just came off of 17, 18, and 19. We're not changing what we're doing. Every year is going to keep getting better. And then COVID came and brought everything to a screeching halt.
That's true.
As far back as August of 2019, when General Motors had a trucker strike, we have not unit-wise gotten back to those 17, 18, and 19 years. So we had to figure out a different way. So when you take, now everybody talks about Vroom and Carvana and that, and I'll discuss that later, but that isn't really the customer experience that you want either, because you hear about all the horror stories.
That's true too.
But the one thing that they did do is they were ready for the Amazon type digital age, I guess.
Can I tell you something? When
Sure.
and I can't remember what year it was, but I remember Carvana and them starting out in Atlanta or somewhere in Atlanta. I just know that. And in fact, I was having a conversation with another associate of mine, and I'm thinking, look at this. Is this something that's just going to take off? And then as the host of the F&I Today show, I have had, some of the other providers for Vroom come on and talk about where they're going and the impact that they're going to make. And I think you're going to talk about this, making it easier, or the perception.
So who made it easier? Forget the Carvanas and the Vrooms. If you had to model something, Amazon. Okay, so who made it easier for online buying? And when you started off the show as to what the new norm is the ease and the customer experience. So when you go to Amazon, for example, you take my wife, she loves to go to the mall, right? She wants to go there. She wants to touch it, feel it, see it.
Yep.
I, on the other hand, click, and that thing's sitting on my doorstep the next day. I don't have to go to the mall. And the experience was just as good for me. So it's depending on what everybody likes. But what COVID did is it rushed us into that slow process of we're converting over to buying everything online for the auto industry. And we got thrown into it quick. So the people like a Vroom or a Carvana or any of these other sites, they already had it figured out. So all of a sudden they were ready, because that was the way to do business. I mean, I still remember that day, we're in the state of Michigan, when they said, okay, as of tomorrow, your doors are shut and only essential vehicles can get worked on. I remember it like it was yesterday. You take the owners of our company, I mean, that kept, that keeps you up at night, still thinking about that day, going, you're all done, and we don't know when this is where you're going to come out of it. But we weren't ready to handle something like that. So as we're going through it, we figured out a way. And as we were figuring out a way, again, the customer experience comes back up. So, the one thing I'll touch on those models for Vroom and Carvana is good models. You hear the horror stories, they're dropping cars. People still, like that model I was using of my wife, people still like to come to the dealership. They still like to be able to pick up a phone. They still like to be able to talk to their salesperson.
Absolutely.
And that's not something right now that you get as you read these stories online. The other thing is, number one, we pride ourselves because we service what we sell. And it isn't all about just buying the car. It's about what happens after the fact. Okay. That's car sales 101. Okay. Because, as everybody, has read the book, Customers for Life, as you look at that, they're yours to keep. they're also yours to lose. So again, that's where we go back and talk about the customer experience. The next thing would be is we invest back in our community. I've had several meetings this week with our stores, and we are very grassroots oriented. So we reinvest back into our community, whether it be through the fair, through local high schools, local colleges. Find that from that online provider of who's selling cars and see if they reinvest back in your community. And that is such a big thing because we want to support the people that support us. Well, we can do that. When you're buying a car from one of those, type of services, they're not reinvesting back into your community. And then that goes, a long way when you're talking about that customer experience. And, and thirdly, I recently just purchased a house, and because of COVID rules, dealing with a mortgage and even at this bank, dealing with a mortgage online or as they were trying to send documents in, they weren't ready to be doing this. I want to be able to walk in the bank and go, this is the biggest purchase that, that a guest makes in buying a house. I want to be able to walk into the bank and talk to my lender and go, hey, I need this, 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 and this. Could never get a hold of them. Worst experience ever. And I learned from that experience to go, if this is how we treat our customers, we're going to be left either further behind. But you learn from those things. So.
Well, here's the thing I hear you saying, and communication, engaging with the customer earlier on is really kind of ideal. Do it the customer way. However, which way that they want to be able to engage with the store, to communicate with that store. So that being said, how did your F&I people, how did they commit to engaging with the customer online, to be able to do even these remote deliveries? What's going on there? Presenting menus online, that sort of thing. Where are they with that whole thing?
So we have some of our stores have jumped on with Upstart, and they're getting that off the ground. But some of our stores, as other stores in the area, got left behind and basically did not embrace the fact that, you would have seen during that time that some F&I numbers went down in some stores because they're not going to call the guest. The best way to sell is when you have somebody sitting right in front of you. So some of our stores did teleconference or a Zoom call, because again, that was the thing to do. You do these Zoom calls. So that's how they embraced that, and they could actually go over everything, with it. And then we would do the delivery again. What Carvana and Vroom did, they didn't invent that type of service, but they perfected it. And at least to that point, when it comes to the customer experience and after the fact, that's where they're losing it, after that. But we
that's true.
Put it together, just like I was saying in the beginning, through whatever curveballs that have been thrown at us in the industry, we figure a way out. To do
Car
that.
dealers are resilient, right? I mean,
sure.
I've been in the auto industry for all my entire life as well, and grew up, and my dad was a dealer. So that's how I kind of got started. Dad didn't want me to be in the car business. He wanted me to be a TV reporter. There you are, Dad. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. Anyway, so it's interesting where we're at now in this whole dynamic, and now we have to navigate through probably some of the most historic times in our own career, you and me both.
The funny thing is the one industry that didn't probably figure it out as well as we did as car people is the restaurant and food industry.
Yeah.
Constantly, again, we were out at the NADA convention out in Vegas, and I go up to my favorite restaurant and, well, it's closed. And you go to this other, oh, it's closed. Oh, it's closed. And, we had taken, when those were starting to close up, we had taken the people, the busboys, the bartenders, the waitresses. And we took those people into our dealerships.
Wow.
And said, here you go. Here's a career for you.
That's why they're closed.
Yeah. And we took those people in because they're normally, they deal with the public. right now, the one of our biggest concerns, and we addressed this probably about 3-4 months ago, again, some, dealerships out there, sell vehicles, this way. There's the car, there's the price, there's the F&I person, and there's no 10 steps of selling. I had the 10 steps, the 8 steps, 10 steps, whatever step. I had those things beat into my head, when I was coming through the business, and still to this day, they still work. We go through our dealerships and we teach, and now we hired all these salespeople during that time of there's the car, there's the price, there's the checkout line, I guess, if you want to. And now, because we had the only one in the state, or we had the only one in the area, and now you have one here and the guy across the street has one. So when that happens, now we have to get back to the basics. And so we've hired IA, very good trainers. Our trainers come out of Oklahoma City, and they're coming up, and we do, and you've probably seen it online, on LinkedIn and stuff. From Chris Baker with the trainers, here's the owner of the company is out there training the salespeople himself. Because
that's nothing but a hands-on dealer. I love that.
And it's 3 days of training, and we bring in the trainers, and then he's up there training himself. Which is something to say about how our company's made up. We're just a company of car people, nothing else. We're just car people. We learned you buy something at X, you sell for X plus 1. There's no other complications. But what we have to do now is all those people that we hired, we have to now butterfly the cars. We have to, do walk-arounds. We have to actually say, okay, meet and greet, establish common ground, and start working through the steps. And just like Tom Brady looks at when a game film, we look at our salespeople and go, okay, if we didn't sell that gentleman a vehicle or woman a vehicle, then where did we go wrong? Okay, well, step 2, again, no different than looking at game film after, you lose a game. You look at it if you didn't sell a car. So again, we're going back to the basics of doing that in the 10 steps. So,
well, here's what I think, about the basics. The basics are true. It is about the F&I fundamentals and repeat and rinse, repeat and rinse until we get this down. Because what is going to be the differentiator when it comes to when the industry normalizes, when we get that inventory back, when one vehicle, like you said, is identical to the other vehicle across the way, how do we make a bigger difference, right? With our salespeople.
Sure.
And not only that, but with F&I. How do we integrate that process and streamline it to make it a better frictionless? I think that's the buzzword going out there, but really how to do that, because the last thing customers want to do is be online, to come into a dealership. And you mentioned Upstart and Prodigy is ideal because it brings the two together. And then we can, of course, not have to start this process all over again, right? And then it's like, well, why did I start there when I got to start it all over here? And kind of reducing that F&I bottleneck so we can really create an easier way to buy a car. What do you say about that?
So, if you break it down and like you're saying, well, so what's the differentiator? So we all pay the same for the cars. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
As General Motors, as Chrysler, as Ford, and the other makes that we have. We all pay the same for the vehicles. So what is the difference? The customer experience. How hard or how easy we're going to make the transaction for the customer, for the guest, will determine as to our profit level, as to what we're going to get. For example, again, when you go back to the basics, and I'm saying I learned this in the 80s, from my dad. If you spend 80% of your time out on the lot, it's 20% of your time at your desk because you build value. If you spend 20% of your time, like we did during COVID, or during the chip and the COVID times, and you spend 80% at your desk trying to sell the vehicle, you're not going to make as much, because what are we doing? We're selling invoices and pieces of paper because that's all we had to do. So now we have to do that flip and go back to that 80 on the lot, 20 back into the store and build value and again, give them a customer experience, because it doesn't end as soon as they walk out of F&I and we give them their keys and say, here's your brand new vehicle. We have to, again, they're ours to keep. They're also ours to lose. So we have to get better at that also.
So Steve Apicella, I don't know if you know who Steve Apicella is, but I'm telling you, this guy is quite brilliant. Really, he's interested. He really is dialed in, and he really talks, which I think is major important, because this is something that I have been trained in the industry all my life, and sometimes, frankly, Jim, I bang my head up against the wall. And it hurts sometimes. But here's the thing. And the reason why I do is because I always worked a pay plan, Jim. You talk about car business. Well, I don't know how you feel about someone working a pay plan, but I always did. And dealers would say, I'm going to pay you more for a higher percentage of service contract sales. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. So I've got my pot that I have created, and I get paid on that pot, right? And it's paid based off of the percentage of service contract sales. Well, what do you think I do? I'm back in that service department. I'm doing whatever it takes to go ahead and get back in front of that customer who didn't buy a service contract.
Right.
And I think it's important that we also talk not in just that micro moment of a menu presentation, but what are we doing to get reoccurring business? Getting, that repeat business is like you said earlier, the best business. What are we doing about that? How do we create that customer experience to get that customer back in the dealership, back in service, and back in front of the F&I department that can get those products back in front of the customer? What do you say about that?
Well, one of the things, during, again, the last, we'll call it 18 months, our F&I numbers have gone up because we've concentrated more on what I'd like to call the spread. Okay, so most of our, to figure out what your percentage of the pot is, most of our F&I managers have to sell a various amount of products, and not just one or two products that they feel strongly in. They have to actually spread and offer all the products, doing the 300% rule, 100% of the products to 100% of the people, 100% of the time, but offer a good value. Right. Okay. There's certain products out there that our company will not do, just because you look at it and it's a way to make money, as opposed to, are we really giving the guest a good product and then standing behind it?
That's right.
Again, dating back to the 80s, it was one of those things where when a customer had a problem, I watched guys that worked for my father, run out the back door and go, oh, I don't want to see that guy. So it goes back to the customer experience. We want to be able to, talk to people and head those things off right as soon as they come out, if there is an issue or a problem. Because again, we're now subject to Google reviews. We're subject to online, whatever type of social media platforms that people are on to air their grievances, right, wrong, or indifferent. But the fact that they actually had to go there, we're not necessarily concerned about that number on that piece of paper, but whether or not a customer comes back, to do business with us and tell everybody else. Before it was, well, I'm going to go, you affect one person, they go tell 10 neighbors. Now you've got the, your social media platform. They're telling everybody. People don't even know them. I mean, that's how, that's how me and you got connected. I mean, if it's out there, then it steamrolls. So if you just do things the right way and do it up front, and you offer a product and you offer it at a good value, then there are no issues.
Well, you know what? I couldn't agree with you more. And I think it is important that dealers take a moment to review those products that are on the menu, and are they valuable? Because again, you can have a product on a menu, but if you don't have buy-in from your F&I department, some have a tendency to kind of skip over it. So I think less is always more. Just by adding products on a menu doesn't make it that it impacts that presentation. Sure. It can actually almost take away from it.
And we bundle so that you'll have in the bundle, it might include 3 or 4. So you're not sitting there making, the experience of, a customer or a guest says yes. Then all of a sudden you want to keep them at that high while you're bringing them into that F&I office. And in order to do that, you have to have a good, there has to be an interview. There has to be a good,
amen. Now you're really talking my language.
Again, the basics are still done brilliantly, if you want to keep those F&I numbers. And like I was saying, during this time, where we weren't necessarily getting inventory or, whatever things were being thrown at us, our F&I numbers as a company went up close to $400 or $500, per copy, because we had to now concentrate on good products of value. And again, we get them all through, IA, and it's a good value to the customer. And then they keep coming back.
Mm-hmm.
You can charge, in our service departments, I don't like that either. Or, overcharging, for example, and the same lines go along with this. You charge somebody for, flushing out one of their systems, and they'll do it once. Mm-hmm. And they won't come back. A guy like me, for example, if I have bad service someplace, I won't tell anybody. I just won't go back. And again, goes back to good CSI is whether or not a customer comes back and does business with you.
So here we are, and I can't get over, how quickly this time really goes. It's amazing. But in closing, is there anything you would want to just really kind of share? Not that, you shared quite a bit, but as far as what you're doing to make a greater impact overall now and, this year, what's going to happen?
Evolving. If I had to sum it up in one word, because if you're not, then you're getting bought out. Okay. And it's, when you have the Lithias or the group ones, or even something that is, from Brian Benton and Chris Baker, that we're not a publicly traded company. And, if anybody ever looks up that story, you can look at Chris's story on that. He bought 15 stores in 18 months. In the industry, unless you're a dealer group or a publicly traded company, I don't see that type of growth. And as we're growing, we're having to evolve with the times. If you're not, then you're probably going to get bought out. So if you don't evolve, then you're going to die.
Well, I am, again, thankful that you are here with us at the F&I Master Series Forum, the digital age. And I have to tell you something. I'm going to take this on the road and take it back to Atlanta, Georgia, 2 years ago. Well, before COVID, I had 2 F&I roundtables, one in Atlanta and one in Baltimore, and they were very successful. So I'm just going to share this with you, Jim. You're going to be invited.
Thank you.
To Atlanta, Georgia, and we're just going to have a great time. It's going to be a 2-day F&I roundtable, and we are talking, how to embrace that customer and how to maximize those profits and just do the right thing and keep those customers coming back for more. Sure. And so I hope that you'll be there with us too.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was fun. I enjoyed you. Gina Calking, welcome to F&I Master Series Forum, the digital age, and it's certainly a pleasure to bring you on today to talk to our dealers and viewers about what is going on with these mergers and acquisitions. And so before we get started with that whole thing, that whole conversation, as it applies to these smaller agencies or independent agencies, what they need to prepare for. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about your background first.
Sure. I've been an investment banker for many years. I graduated from college at the University of Chicago and started out, well, a long time ago with some investment banks, an investment bank that's no longer around, Kidder Peabody. Then went on to a private equity firm called Madison Dearborn Partners, which is a fairly large buyout firm, and went to JP Morgan. And in JP Morgan, I started my career really focusing in on mergers and acquisitions. And in 1999, I joined Colonnade Advisors as employee number 1. And I was here doing mergers and acquisitions largely with technology companies. I left in 2004 and became the CFO of a number of companies, including a company in equipment finance, and came back to investment banking about 7 years ago. And so I'm here at Colonnade Advisors, where we focus on mergers and acquisitions for companies in business services and financial services. One of our biggest areas of focus is the automotive F&I space. So we work with F&I administrators, F&I agencies, F&I payment plan companies. We work with automotive finance companies. So we advise them either on how they sell themselves or on acquiring other companies. We're not like a business broker. We are regulated by FINRA. We're an SEC regulated company. And so we are working with large companies and with small companies. So our deals range in size from about 20, 25 million upwards to $1 billion.
Wow, that's pretty impressive, and a very impressive background, I will say. I mean, earlier you were also on the live talk with Becky Chernek, and I'm going to tell you right now, I mean, what an impressive lady you are. And I also mentioned pretty darn smart. You really know your stuff. And so it is certainly a pleasure again to have you on our forum today. And I want to talk about this article that you wrote, published in Agent Entrepreneur, 2022 Mergers and Acquisition Predictions for F&I Agents. And I think a lot of the independent agents, even smaller agents, maybe they're getting somewhat concerned with all these mergers and acquisitions because it has them squeezing out of the picture. So what would you say would be a way for them to keep up with that value proposition for dealers today?
Well, I would say it's a difficult environment for agencies. Agencies have kind of a dual set of threats coming at them. One, dealers are consolidating. The big keep getting bigger. There's a lot of M&A happening in the dealership world. And for an agent, it's kind of scary to think about, gosh, what happens when my number one client is acquired? Am I the agent that stays with that dealership group? Do I get pushed out? That fact set is driving some of the M&A that we see today, because agents are saying, gosh, I don't know, with my agency and the size it is, my 3, 5, 10 people, if I'm up against a larger agent group, will I be the one that's retained after my dealership's acquired? The other thing that's happening is there's a lot of agents that are being acquired and being part of a larger agent group. And it's hard to compete against an agent group that has a larger footprint, a larger geographic footprint, or one that's working with the larger dealerships. Larger dealership groups like to work with national providers. And so it can be tough for an independent agent to compete against that. So, agents today can do a couple of things to prepare. One, they can build to scale their business, or two, they can sell and be part of a larger organization that can compete effectively. So let's talk about first building to scale. So as an agent, you can grow organically, meaning continue to bring on more people, more agents, land more dealership clients, and expand your geographic footprint. Okay, that all sounds really easy from somebody like me sitting here in a chair in an office, has no idea actually how agents do their job. So it's actually a very difficult path to go down. Maybe outside funding's needed to do that. maybe an agent to say, gosh, I can't just go off and hire onesie, twosies, independent agents all over the place. I need to acquire another agency. And so if that is the path, then capital needs to be raised in order to fund those acquisitions. An advisor is probably needed to be hired to help complete those acquisitions. And you're gonna have attorneys involved, et cetera. Or is it time for the agency to sell itself to a larger agency so that way that agent group can continue to do well for its clients, continue to provide the same service and be there if that dealership is sold because they're part of a larger agent group. So I really see two paths for agents today to go down.
Well, here's the other thing. And I know some of these guys have created or have developed this relationship, and they really haven't changed really in the training or the support that they should be providing to the dealership or keeping up with the times. And for the life of me, as we discussed before earlier, was it's if they have stayed the test of time for 20 years. And so what do you say to those agents?
So, I think in order to retain the relationships that agents have and to be competitive, if their dealership group's being acquired, they need to provide just really strong services to that dealership group. So that goes beyond just training on the products. That means training on systems. That means being an expert in reinsurance. It means talking about digital sales and how to best get in front of clients from an F&I perspective, how to get in front of the vehicle buyers if they're mainly doing digital retailing or they're shopping for cars online and just showing up to sign dotted line. How do you get the F&I office to be effective in that type of transaction? And so those agents that are able to have that additional value add are definitely going to be more value add to buyers. But I agree with you, Rebecca. The way business was done 10 years ago, it is not the same today. People don't buy cars in the same way. So why would they buy F&I products in the same way?
Well, exactly. So I could talk about even just a few years ago, where I had a conversation. Well, I was invited to an online event. And I won't go ahead and mention names, but I get invited to this online event, and it's about whether or not we need to be training our salespeople on product knowledge and or even the ability to endorse these products. And so the dealer advocates are saying, hell no, we're not going to be training salespeople on product knowledge or endorsing these products. And first of all, it was a dealer agent, but it was a dealer agent plus the dealer advocate. So the agent was supporting that decision not to train up salespeople for product knowledge and endorsing the product, saying that when they do, they're likely going to give up the farm. So it's better to keep these guys in the dark. I'm not making this up. So it's like, I don't know. Is it them that, where we can't train an old dog new tricks or what? I mean, it just stands to, there's a lot of professionals out there that think this way, that training up salespeople today to even have a better understanding of products, endorsing the product is not a good idea. What do you say to that with all this going on?
Total missed opportunity. It's a total missed opportunity. I think that, there are many points at which a person will buy an F&I product. And it's not only inside the F&I office. I mean, by the time a consumer or a vehicle owner gets into the F&I office, they're exhausted. They have decision fatigue. They just spent close to $40,000 on a vehicle. Now you're asking them to spend more money? Wait, what? They're like, no, it's easier to say no than yes. And that's something that people always need to remember. It's easier to say no than yes, no matter how compelling the argument is. And training a sales team to sell F&I products and weave it into the conversation. For example, when they're doing the drive around, I mean, that's great time, especially now with digital retailing. With digital retailing, people don't need to spend as much time in the dealership. They've learned a lot online. They've been digesting information and looking at it on their phone, at their computer, on their iPad at night. But then they get into that car to do the test drive. That's a great place to start talking about the products that are really wealth management products for that consumer before they walk into the F&I office. So the pump is primed. They have knowledge. They have the transparency. Because right now, maybe, at great dealerships, 100% of, the penetration of F&I products is 100% plus. But really, across the board, it's maybe 55% of consumers buy vehicle service contract in the F&I office. So what about that other 45%? Either they were too exhausted to make that decision. It was too small of a time period for them to make that decision and understand the product, or they weren't followed up with. I mean, this is the whole reason why the aftermarket exists for vehicle service contracts. And for example, CarShield. Everybody sees the CarShield advertisements. That has been the best thing to happen to the F&I industry in a long time, because CarShield's become a brand name. They are advertising what vehicle service contracts are. My mom now knows what a VSC is, thanks to Ice-T. I mean, despite the fact that I've tried to explain it to her, she gets it now. And now when people come into the F&I office, they may understand what the VSC is, but they know they can buy it aftermarket. Well, the dealership should really own that relationship. And you don't own that relationship by complaining about CarShield. It's like, oh, those guys are taking away our business. It wasn't your business to have if you didn't get it. So the dealership and the F&I office should be following up with their consumers 30, 60, 90 days after the sale of the vehicle and try to sell them aftermarket contracts to the best of their ability. Then there are finance companies out there that will finance those products. So even if it didn't get into the auto loan.
Well, there's a lot of conversation, obviously, with this forum of trying to get more information in front of the customer, not try to, hide some of that or not talk about that information so much and waiting for the customer to make their way into the dealership, into that F&I office. But as you mentioned, having the information earlier on, giving customers the opportunity to determine some of these terms, understand their purchase, understand the additional products earlier on, certainly just makes it for an easier decision once they make their way into that F&I office.
I agree. Transparency is so important. Consumers want to be educated. We shouldn't be paternalistic and tell consumers what they should buy. That doesn't work anymore. We're all smarter than that. That's the beauty of the internet and Google. We all now have the tools to educate ourselves. And to purchase an asset like a car, which is the second largest purchase a consumer will make, they should have complete transparency into the car and the products. Imagine if a world where a consumer goes, gosh, I'm going to request information from my dealership about this, the Audi A4 that I would like to buy. And when you get that information, it also very clearly in that email comes information about the F&I products that the dealership recommends for you, a curated list. That will be meaningful, because then I walk back into the dealership later on with my phone in hand and say, I want to talk to you about the A4. Okay, that's great. So let's talk about the tire and wheel contract. Why do you think that's a good idea for me? And then I'm leading the conversation. And once I start originating the conversation as the consumer, I've already bought in. I'm already a believer at that point.
Well, there was an article in Automotive News about an F&I person who, went out of their way to train up that salespeople to assure that the salespeople had the information, the product knowledge necessary to endorse the products prior to the customer going into the F&I office. And some will say, even that I don't know, single point sales associate, delivering the menu presentation. I'm sure A to Z will have something to say about that. It just makes it it streamlines that and just
Mhm.
makes it easier on the customer to take in that additional information. But he found that by doing that, they actually sold a lot more products.
It seems
Because, well, it does, because, here's the salesperson. I guess they spend a lot more time. They do. I know. I've been in the business for many, many years. And salespeople spend days, if not more hours, with that customer.
right.
And they build that trust factor with the
Mhm.
customer. So they're going to listen to what I would think, or at least, hey, if I'm endorsing this, if I have a better understanding of what that tire and wheel is, it just stands to reason that I'm going to
Right.
take advantage of it, as opposed to, I have no idea what you're talking about. And besides, those tires are great. Nothing wrong with those wheels. Those wheels are awesome. And speaking of a vehicle service contract, well, let me tell you something. Vehicle service contract, we don't need that. You got a 3-year, you got a 36,000 mile coverage, a complete
Mhm.
coverage on this car from the manufacturer. Wait till after 3 years or 36,000 miles, something along
Mhm.
those lines, because what else are they going to say?
Right. That's right. That's right. I think that, a sale of a vehicle is a relationship of trust. And, as a car buyer, you've built that relationship with the salesperson. And, I'm speaking to Joe, speaking to Joe, speaking to Joe. And I make my decision to buy this very cool car. I've talked to him like 8 times. We have all these text messages and emails going forward. And now I would like you to meet Bob. And you're going to spend 10 minutes with Bob, and he's going to make you spend 15% more on your car purchase. You're going to be like, what? You take advantage of that relationship and get more knowledge there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I was just shocked when I was on this show, and a dealer advocate along with an agent, well, they were like, this is absurd. This is crazy. Why in the world would we even think to do that? So there are agents out there that really don't understand this whole thing about getting information out sooner rather than later. And this is something that they really need to wrap their heads around. That,
I agree.
it's not just, it's just not a buzzword, digital retailing.
That's right.
That this is actually gaining more and more traction.
Mm-hmm.
This is taking place. And some of the larger automotive groups, you tell them, I mean, you're involved in these mergers and acquisitions, but I got to say, they're not doing this and spending the kind of money and to continue with status quo,
Right.
the way things have always been. There's a lot of thought going into this and changes that are going to be taking place in the next year to 2 years.
I agree. So I think agencies that have more value add into a dealership, either it's through how they approach digital retailing and how they assist the dealership in selling more F&I products, either before the vehicle, before walking into the F&I office or after they walk out of the F&I office. I believe that those agencies are more valuable. They're doing business differently. And we see a lot of M&A activity happening amongst agencies going into the rest of 2022 here. We'll see more administrators buying up agencies. We'll see larger agencies buying smaller agencies. So there'll be a lot of M&A activity. So agencies, when they're getting ready, if I'm an agent owner and I am thinking, gosh, I'd like to sell my agency in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
There are a couple of things that I would focus on to get ready for a sale. One, what is my value add into the dealership? Is it just everything we've been talking about now? How we're approaching digital retailing, how we can get more sales either before or after the vehicle sale. Number 2, how diversified am I? So agencies that have a lower concentration of dealership groups, not only rooftops, but dealership groups are more valuable. If an agency's revenues are 20% or more from any dealership group, that's definitely going to negatively impact the valuation of that agency, because the buyer will look at that agency and go, gosh, I am worried about waking up tomorrow and losing 20% of sales because, that dealership group was acquired by Asbury. So the diversification is key. So any agency that's thinking about selling in a couple of years, you've got to work on bringing on more clients to have a diversified revenue stream. And I can't emphasize enough dealership group versus rooftop. I often hear, but we have all these rooftops. But really the decision maker is at the group level. I'm like, no, you don't understand, Gina. We have gotten into each rooftop. It's the decision's been made at each rooftop level. Yes, but if that dealership is sold or the dealership group is sold, the decision making will change. So really it has to be at the group level. What is your concentration amongst dealerships? So that is the number one area to focus on.
So if I don't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to just see if I can't make, okay, so are they saying that the GM in each of these rooftop stores are the one that makes the decision whether they stay or go? Is that what you're saying they're saying? Or
I hear that from agencies. Yes, I hear that from agencies where they say it's the GM that decides whether or not we're in the store, not, that's where the decision's made. So we have 5 different GMs, even though it's one dealership group, 5 different GMs that we sold on our services, and they all individually made the decision. Maybe that
there's a lot to, the reason why I say that, there is a lot to be said about that. Mm-hmm. Because I can tell you some of the groups, they rely heavily on GMs to call the shots. They Absolutely. Do. And probably too much so, too much in right. my humble opinion, because I think some of the decisions aren't the best. And the reason I say that is I'd like to have a streamlined process in the dealerships across the board. Mm-hmm. If you want to go ahead and put one F&I person into another store, it shouldn't be as if they have to start all over again. Right. There should be some consistency there in those stores. But that's beside the point. That's another conversation for another day. But I do get where they feel as if that GM is in complete control. They are like talking to the dealer. But that doesn't mean that there's, that they're not going to be out of it. I mean, I don't understand their thinking on that if the group is acquired.
Right, exactly. And that's the risk. And that's why agencies with high dealership group concentration are less valuable than agencies with high diversification of dealership groups. So I hear and see deals that get traded for 7 to 9 times earnings, pre-tax earnings. But there are also a lot of deals that get traded for 5 to 7 times earnings. And so the larger multiples go for the agent groups that are bigger. So they are 10 people or more. They have 4 or 5 million in earnings, and they have great diversification. Those agencies will trade for the 7 to 9 times. The agencies that have greater than 20% concentration, that have less than 4 million in earnings, they're going to trade at the lower end of the multiple range. The other thing to think about is when we talk about the number of employees, are they 1099 employees or are they your W-2 employees? As an agency, they need to be your W-2 employees to really get full value. If they're 1099 employees and you say, we'll make them W-2 employees as part of this transaction, it starts to get very murky, because you have to go to that employee. You have to go to that 1099. Think about these agent owners. These agency owners are going, okay, you know what, Gina, I'm going to sell my agency. I'd like you to represent me. And when we get to close the deal, I will tell that 1099 they now have to be a W-2 employee. Well, that 1099 now knows what their value is. They now know that in order to close the deal, they have to be a W-2 employee. They're going to ask for more money. You need to get that done before you embark on a transaction.
That's some good stuff to know. I had no idea that, I guess you would maybe, but I never really thought through it that way, that having a W-2 employee versus a 1099 consultant is going to put more value to your group.
Right. Because you 1099, you have to say, is that 1099, are they a 1099 because they can take on business from other admins, or are they working with other MGAs? It's, why are they a 1099? The answer usually is, well, it's tax reasons. The agent likes to be independent. And so they like to have their own business. Yeah,
there's a lot of that. Yeah.
Right, I get it. But if they like to have their own business, then, and not be part of your organization, why are they suddenly going to be part of your organization as a W-2 employee upon your sale? If you look at the agencies that have sold and you really dig into them, you're probably going to find that they were actual W-2 employees and not 1099s. So something to think about for agency owners that are looking to sell in the future.
Definitely some good stuff here, Gina. So in closing, for dealers and viewers, again, we talked about the importance to really kind of look at where we are in the future and what you're bringing to the dealers as a value proposition.
Mm-hmm.
So in closing, what else can you share with our dealers and viewers that really can help them to make a greater impact?
I think staying at the forefront of the technologies that are coming along in the dealership world. I think all too often, agencies will say, I'm incredibly important in this ecosystem, which is true. They are incredibly important. But then the second part, and I don't need to change because I'm so important, is incorrect. You can become disintermediated. I think as dealerships have been, moving more and more to digital retailing beyond just putting up a flashy page with, here are vehicles that are available for sale, but really from soup to nuts, everything from all the e-contracting and the sales to competing directly head to head with the Carvanas of the world. The agents need to stay at the front of that and continue to bring value to dealerships in many ways. And those agencies that can bring more value to dealerships and become indispensable to dealerships, a diversified group of dealerships, but to dealerships, will be in the best position to sell in the future. And there are a lot of buyers out there. I don't know how long this is going to continue, but if it's anything like the insurance industry, where insurance agencies have been going through M&A for 11, 12 years now, and it just thousands of deals a year that are getting done in the insurance agency space. We are starting to see the momentum in the F&I agency space, and that will continue.
I know. In fact, in your article, I think you mentioned as well that these mergers and acquisitions are the highest in history with that, right?
They are. There's a lot of capital. In this industry, you have private equity that has invested in administrators, and they've put money to work at these high valuations. And that administrator, to grow year over year, they have to show 10 to 15% bottom line growth every single year under private equity ownership. Okay, that is hard to do organically. So they must look at inorganic paths, and that includes acquisitions themselves. One of the best things they can do is to buy up their distribution channel and lock it in, because administrators do not want their primary agencies to be acquired by another administrator. Then they've lost a distribution channel and their sales will be impacted. So as long as private equity has money in administrators, we're going to see a high volume of agencies that are transacting.
I'm telling you right now, guys, gals, everyone, we have to do our best, whatever that it takes, to embrace this whole dynamic, what's taking place in our industry today. Gina, thank you again for taking the time to come on our live event today, F&I Master Series Forum, The Digital Age. And here's the thing. come the fall, we're going to Atlanta, Georgia. We're going to make this live. And guess I would want you to hopefully be able to attend that as well.
Thank you for the invite. I appreciate it. It's been a
All
pleasure
right,
speaking
great.
with you.
Thank you again, Gina. I appreciate your time today.
All right.
Well, Cheryl, welcome to the F&I Master Series Forum, the digital age. And it's certainly a pleasure to have you, Automotive Dealership Institute, on with us today. And to get things started, please share, if you would, your background. How long have you been with the Automotive Dealership Institute? And what's going on with ADI lately?
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Becky. It's nice to see you and be on this forum as well. So as she said, my name is Cheryl Piabtedosi, and I'm actually the instructor for Automotive Dealership Institute. I have been with them a little over 10 years now.
Wow.
And so thoroughly enjoyed my time with them. Just being able to, reach out and to help educate young F&I students and people have grown into management, directors, general managers, desk managers, and most importantly, just help them along the way and hear their story. So, and see how much they've grown. I have been in the car business since I was 18 years old. I did not intend to be here this long in the business. I really just needed a job. But I pretty much fell in love with the business almost immediately. I just love the way it's fast paced. There's always something going on. It's just a very, as you know, you've worked in dealerships as well. It's just always a very exciting and interesting, fast paced business. So,
well, I'll tell you right now, it certainly is a very fast paced industry. And, especially, with COVID, I mean, since COVID, dealers are doing really well. I mean, they are making more profits than they've ever made. And I'm sure they didn't see that coming either. They're very resilient. They're happy and things are going great. But I think a lot of times when things are going really awesome, we don't necessarily think that, we need to go ahead and continue to put these best practices in place as far as training and the importance of training up our team. So what is the importance of training up your team?
Well, I think the importance, two parts, but, obviously some of it becomes onto the employee themselves to make sure they're reading and studying and practicing, practice all the time. But I think for the dealership, many, many times, I think, especially as you mentioned, when good times happen, that gets thrown by the wayside. We don't need it. We're doing so well, but there always comes a time when there's a shift in the marketplace. And you have to get back to basics again, and you have to figure out how to sell again and how to overcome objections, whether you're selling a car or a particular product. So I think that that's just an extremely critical part of the business, especially as you have new management come up too. New managers start working and they're not schooled in how to properly desk a deal, how to read a credit report, and then the F&I managers don't know which lenders to send it to, don't have the right relationship set up with them. And I think that's all critical from a profitability point of view for the dealership, legal compliance, and then, their own personal income and experience with that position as well.
So you mean, are you trying to tell me that technology doesn't do everything for everyone?
You
You
know,
actually have to know something, like have some of
yeah.
those fundamentals down. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. My students all the time say, well, I don't really have to do this at the dealership. Do I? Do I have to do a debt ratio or payment to income, or I don't have to worry about max LTV? Somebody does it for me. I'm like, no, not all the systems do it for you, as you know. And even if they do, you need to know how to do it yourself. So when they see a deal, they understand they really do have a deal where it can be placed and what I can do with this deal.
Well, the funny thing is, I will add to that. I was doing some training with NCM Institute, and it was a little bit on the leasing. Well, it was on leasing and some of the F&I fundamentals as you described. But anyway, so I thought, well, I think we need to do some of this leasing by hand, manually.
Oh, good luck.
And I'm like, they wanted to shoot me. But here's the thing. They may wanted to shoot me, but I did get a phone call maybe a month later thanking me for that, because it ended up that they actually needed that to be able to work a lease. And evidently they weren't able to go ahead and I don't know exactly what was going on, but the technology at the time wasn't working. So they had to rely on, utilizing the manual way of figuring a lease. So anyway, so it all worked out. And so salespeople, service, many of these people in the dealership or even outside of a dealership, real estate, people in banks, lending, that sort of thing, always aspire to be in F&I. They're like, man, I want to be in that position. So what does it really take? I mean, speak to that. What does it take to be an F&I today? Sorry.
Well, I think that some of the things you mentioned, obviously you have to have the desire to want to do that. But sometimes I think there's misconceptions that I've worked at as a financial analyst, and maybe I work at the bank doing accounting, and that's all great. And we have students from all different walks of life, but it's even more than that. As you know, it's a sales position. I mean, you're still selling, but you do need to have a good understanding of everything that goes on at the dealership in terms of you're the profit center, you're responsible for CSI, for making sure that car gets delivered, and most importantly, we can get paid and funded for that vehicle as well. So it encompasses, I think, a lot more than somebody realizes. But I truly believe they have to have a passion for the automotive industry. I think that's very, very critical, and a passion and desire to learn and to want to invest in themselves. Even if you have somebody who's a top salesperson at the dealership, as you know, everybody, as you mentioned, wants to go into F&I because it does look easy, but also the income can be quite great. But there's a lot of stress there. There's a little bit of pressure, but it also requires, I think, somebody who's willing to invest in themselves, to better themselves, and not wait for them just for the dealership to promote you, because that may or may not ever happen. And then without that, you may not even get the proper training too. So once you're put into that role, it might not be a really good fit, not because you aren't capable, but you didn't have the right training tools in place. You can't wait for the dealership to train you. You've got to go out there and do it on your own and invest the time, the money, and even just the research that's involved to make this your career. Because it's a career, it's a good one.
It's a fantastic one. Are you kidding me? I don't care whether or not it's automotive independent or if it's recreational, all of it. I mean, always it's like the best thing that ever happened to me when I first got into F&I, but I never stopped learning, and I always have my eyes and my ears open. And because you have to, because that's part of the industry. I mean, that is part of the position, is making sure that you're protecting the dealership assets and you're doing everything that you possibly can to help to maximize, that transaction. So yes, there's a tremendous amount of work that's involved. It looks a whole heck of a lot easier than what it is. That's for darn sure. And I think it's getting a little tougher. I mean, between learning, all the technology just to print up a deal, right? And everything that every lender is a little bit different on how they work a deal, what credit report that they use, what their loan to value is versus their FICO scores. And this is something that we have got to have a better grasp on in F&I. So what I'm seeing, I'm going to tell you, I think I'm seeing watered down talent when it comes to, Cheryl, when I was in that position, I'm out there with that customer and I'm trying to figure out, is there a better way to put this deal together?
Sure.
And what lenders do I have available that, even though that it might be just one way at the desk, doesn't necessarily mean it's gospel. And my
Right.
job was always to make that deal better. But if you don't know your lenders and you don't know how they buy, obviously that's something that is such a critical component to what F&I is all about.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
No, absolutely. I certainly agree. It's knowing your lenders and what they will expect, what their tolerances are, of course. And I think sometimes deals are lost because F&I managers don't get involved early. Go out, like you said, you're chatting with the customer, making sure, do you have any additional income you'd like to include? Because we might need it, to be quite honest. So, and it's just knowing that you have a deal there instead of just letting it walk or not be as good of a deal as it can be. I think you're right. The talent's a little bit watered down, but I think it's some lack of training too. And it's just not what we do, but I know with what your company does as well, with Chernek Consulting, it's ongoing training for their employees as well.
Well, I think it's important that, they have the classroom training, online training like you offer. And there's a deeper dive in what you do. So I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years now, time has gone by fast. I was looking at a photo I had with Arzu and Alan at the Institute. And oh my gosh, I look great. Anyway, so I'm just saying, but that's the thing, we have to make it a point to make sure that we do the appropriate shopping when it comes to our training providers. And believe me when I tell you, I don't think I have to, how many different providers are out there and what you're able to obtain through their training. Now, I found 15 years ago, I guess it was or so, that ADI was special.
Mm-hmm.
In that what it offered and how deep it went into that 30-day program. And I'm thinking, gosh, I know how hard it was for me when I went to Pat Ryan and JM&A, let alone your
like 1 week.
Well, when I worked for JM&A, it was 2 weeks, but still, it was brutal. And so you're making people, it's 30 days. That's a lot of time spent. And they have, once they graduate, they're also accredited through Northwood University. Is that still the case?
Yes. We still have a partnership with Northwood, and once they complete with us, they don't just get a certificate. We're a licensed school, so they're going to get a diploma that states they've completed the requirements of our training. But it's it's boot camp. I mean, 30 days is a long time to either be here in Scottsdale or now that we're doing it virtual with live instructors. That's a lot of time spent. But like you said, they're more well-versed, and you teach managers at the level that you've been at how to do a lease by hand. We do the same thing. And it's not just because we want them to have a better understanding of it. So if a customer has a question, we can be much more knowledgeable and answer those questions and address any concerns they may have. But they're, taught everything to have that basic, solid foundation of not just, all the schools are great that you and I have all been to for 1 week or 2 weeks. They've given us some really good foundation with products and objections and menu selling, but there's, as so much more to it. They're practicing and working and structuring, real deals that we're having them analyze the credit reports and, maximize the deal, fill out the, debt ratios, payment to income ratios, and understanding the front advance and the back. And so it's a lot of work, but we just feel that there's so much more experience and well-rounded to go ahead and be much more effective when they do work at the dealership.
So here's what I do. I have, I don't know how long, well, 15 years, I guess. But But when I do get phone calls about training, online training, I really go out of my way to make sure that everyone understands what does that mean.
Right.
And then I do everything I can to point them in the right direction.
Sure.
And that's at ADI, because I know how important that training is and how much they're going to get through your institute and how important it is. I mean, literally after 30 days, they might as well have 5 years of
Yeah,
knowledge
PhD.
compared to some of these others. No, I mean, it's so true. So this is where it's really important. So if you guys are shopping, for online training, you really have to make a decision. How deep into this? It's your career. You got to take serious. And so I would highly recommend that you check out ADI. Now, that being said, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Cheryl.
Okay.
And what do you suppose? I know these F&I basics, F&I fundamentals are so important. But where do you see this digital retailing going, the digital transformation? Brian Kramer talked about how he took his entire store from online to in dealership and completely digitalized it. There's not a paper. Unless, of course, the customer wants that the paper documents for delivery. Everything is digital. Where do you see this whole thing going?
Well, I think that it's going to go several different ways. I mean, are you talking about digital they're still coming in the dealership, or is it a remote F&I experience?
They have both. So
They have
basically what's going to happen is that the customer, once they've done their online terms and have agreed to buy the car and coming into the dealership, they continue that digital experience. So there's no paperwork, there's no document, everything is uploaded onto a safe server, and it's completely digital. So buyer agreements, et cetera, everything is on a digital format. And so
I mean, I think that is the way that you're seeing a lot of things go. But I will say that a couple different things. One, I just recently read that a lot of consumers, especially the younger ones, they prefer to go to a regular, brick and mortar store to at least finish up the transaction. But with that being said, as you know, they want to be able to get a lot of the information ahead of time. They may start the credit application, maybe some of the pricing negotiations and everything else. But at some point, there's going to be X amount of customers that will still go in to finish the transaction. But I think dealers need to be prepared for both. So there are going to be, X, Y, and Z customers want to come in and finish it up there. I think that some do want to do everything from A to Z all the way through on a remote F&I. And I've had several students that right now are doing it remotely, and they're saying they're being much more profitable. Customers know they have an appointment, and they kind of try to expedite the process for them, and it's worked out beautifully. So I think dealers need to be prepared for all different types of consumers and be able to cater to them.
And do you think our F&I people are, they also have to really adapt to this new way of engagement with the customer, whether it be online, remote, in dealership? And as you mentioned, like I like to bang my head up against the wall a million times when I talk about the interview again.
So critical.
Right?
Absolutely. So critical. So yeah, whether it happens to be on a digital type forum and we chat back and forth on the internet, or we, however we communicate, but that interview still needs to be done at some point, and it could be done in many different forums. I think it's just critical dealers have an avenue for that, but I think the F&I managers need to be very well versed and be able to switch hats if they need to adapt to different customers' needs. And be willing to adapt. I think sometimes we may see that too. I've always done it this way, and I really don't want to do it any differently.
Yeah, we still have a lot of that going on. And it's like, I hear you. It must be nice.
It would be, but it's not reality.
My life's never been that easy. But, I've always done it this way. It's 20 years later. I mean, God, what would have happened if we didn't do menu selling, right? We'd still be bring the customers into the box and saying, let me show you how this is going to get done.
Right. Right. And
Right.
we had to adapt as well at ADI. We had to change during COVID and go to a virtual forum. And, you can't keep doing things the same way you've done it, or you may not be there. You may be out of business.
We
So
don't, and we don't want that for ADI, that's for sure. So
no.
Cheryl, in closing, is there anything else you would like to add for our dealers and viewers before we close?
Well, I would just like to thank you so very much for the time that you've allowed us to come in and to speak with you. And I think too, for viewers or anybody considering finance and dealers, it's a wonderful business. Customers are requiring a lot more of us, that we are more transparent, that we are the professionals, we are representing the bank. And I think you spoke to it quite a bit today yourself, Becky, with training on so many different levels, not only what the dealership provides, but things that you can do to help yourself to continue to grow and to, make the type of income that they, would wish to make.
Well,
And
I just hope
that's
that
the
dealers
dealership.
really understand that, when they tell me I get my training for free from a provider, I think you get what you pay for. And
Yep, I agree.
I don't know when's the last time they've been in your dealership, or, what exactly are they training?
Yeah, what's the quality and what is it and how long? Yeah. No, I wholeheartedly agree. You get
I don't
what
see the F&I fundamentals so much. And that's the only reason why I'm bringing that up a bit before we close. I'd like to see more basics, more F&I fundamentals. I like these F&I people, instead of having to try to figure it out. And not just the F&I people we could go on for days. Desk managers, and how that's even allowed is beyond me. And I'm sure you've heard it a time or two after your graduates have gone into a dealership and said, "You're not going to believe this one." Let me share you this.
And I
Let me
believe
share
it.
you this.
I believe it, because they get they get promoted from sales and they don't have the proper training from their dealership. I think the best desk managers are the ones that come from finance, that already know what a deal should look like.
So dealers, here's this. Why don't you send your sales managers to ADI? And if you can't send them to ADI, do the online training.
Exactly. And also
Something's
with
better than nothing.
and your help too with, in dealership consulting as well.
Well, I'm the queen of process. So I take your F&I fundamentals wherever I go. I've got a couple of your books up there. So believe me when I tell you, I talk about the very best, and whatever I can do to bring the very best to my dealers, that's what it's all about.
I think so.
Thank you again, Cheryl.
Thank
I
you so
appreciate
very
your
much.
time.
All
It's a
right. Take
pleasure.
care.
Thank you. Welcome, Joe Caruso. It's a pleasure to have you on the F&I Master Series Forum, the digital age. And I got to tell you, I know you very well, and I know you're a phenomenal trainer. But for those that may not necessarily know your background, I thought it would be best. Let's go ahead, give an idea of your background, what you do, and then we'll just get into why do you suppose there is this turnover in dealerships today. So Joe, have at it.
All right. Thank you, Becky. I 27 years in the automotive industry, brothers, family, dad owned a dealership. When I was a little kid, all I wanted to do was sell cars. When people were saying they wanted to be firefighters, astronauts, policemen, whatever, for me, it was, I want to sell cars. That's all I've ever wanted to do. I started selling cars full time when I was 17, sold my first car when I was 9 years old. And it's just a passion of mine, and done everything from being a salesperson all the way up to general manager, part owner of dealerships. And then, my last dealership that I ran, I was so successful at it and had so much fun doing it that because of the training and the employee growth that happened inside of the dealership, I decided I wanted to do this full time. So I formed the Do It Today Learning Network, which in turn, helps dealerships train their employees, and actually a well-trained employee is an employee that will stay. So, it's really relative to talking about employee turnover.
Well, yes. So here's the thing. Everybody thinks it's so much easier being a consultant than it is in the dealership. What do you think about that?
Well, like right now, it's a little difficult, right? Because every dealer's making a ton of money. They're selling less cars, making more money than they ever have before. And they went from what I like to call chimpanzees to King Kong, and they're all beating their chest. So right now it's tough. It's a tough time to be a consultant, a trainer in this business, right? Because everybody's doing really well, which I'm glad they are. Sometimes a little jealous that I'm not in the stores making all this extra money. But we know that eventually that's going to change, and training and turnover are going to increase or need to be increased. And so, and hopefully there'll be more need for people like me.
Okay, so, and yeah, I get it. Believe me, I completely understand the pain. So here's the thing. Why do you suppose, I mean, in your stores, right, that we still continue to have turnover? Even now, when it's super awesome, great, we still have dealers who are calling on the phone and going, hey, can you get me some help? Can I get a fill-in F&I manager? That guy, that gal, she just left, and man, we need some help. And and some stores just seem to have this excessive turnover all the time. What's up with that?
Some dealers aren't going to like this answer, and I'm okay with that, right? Because, I'll tell you right now, how about we'll take this example, right? Dealers are selling fewer cars, making more money, right? So what do? Cut employee pay plans. Cars are selling themselves, right? So instead of paying you the big commissions, right? Let's cut your pay plan. Let's pay you flats because the cars are selling themselves, right? And so now, right, employees are in these situations are getting jaded, right? They want to go find other places that I know. I follow salespeople on different message boards like Reddit and things like that. And, salespeople are looking for places that pay on commission right now because commissions are so high, right? And then if anybody, new employee says, hey, rate my pay plan, and it's a pay plan based upon flats, they're like, hey, go find somewhere else to work, right? And so really the employees in this situation, right, they don't feel appreciated, right? When times were tough and they were struggling on the commission base, right, and they were fighting for every dollar, right, there was no, hey, let me pay you some higher flats so you're doing okay. It was, hey, you got to earn it.
You got to
So
top it up.
now when they're trying to earn it, and dealers, dealer principals and owners are making the salespeople are only making a percentage of what that dealer's making, a smaller percentage. Everybody should be happy, right? So, and I think that's really, in these times where salespeople are making more money than they ever have before, I think that's where you start seeing the animosity come from, is when they don't feel appreciated.
Well, being in F&I, so here's what I like to see in the industry. I think that if we had more of this, it would be obviously better, in that we won't have as much turnover in F&I. But we take from the sales team, and there's a term, I guess, we put them on the bench, and we train them up, get them ready for the next opportunity. And I like to think the next opportunity could be F&I, could it be in the service? But to me, that just seems like the natural progression of what happens with that sales associate. But maybe now it's like, well, wait a second. I don't really want to come off the floor. Now's the time for me to be on the floor. So promoting from within, do you feel like maybe that might cause a concern for sales associates that maybe in fact, the reason why I say that, had a conversation and the individual said, not that this F&I person went back to selling cars because they made more income or a higher income.
Well, you see this issue kind of a lot. One, if you put a salesperson on a career path, a true career path to advance their career, they're going to be tremendously loyal to you, right? But the, old adage was, hey, come work for me. I'll make you a manager. You want to be an F&I manager? All right, great. You'll be an F&I manager, but here, start in detail, right? Or, start as a salesperson, or, and they just kind of put these salespeople on dreams of becoming this manager and not ever actually promoting them, right? And I know all throughout my career, I always focused completely on promoting from within, having people ready to fill the roles, training people how to do the position above them so they could grow, right? And a lot of managers, they're afraid to train the people below them to do their job because they're afraid they're going to get replaced. I was just having this conversation actually with the dealership I visited earlier today. And if I'm training somebody, I want them to be able to take my job, because if they're good enough to take my job, it means I'm probably moving up, right? That means I'm doing a good job. And caring about your employees enough to put them on a real career path to growth is the easiest way to retain your employees, right? So you take the opposite of cutting their pay plan, making them feel unappreciated, to, hey, I see something in you. I'm going to take you as far in this business as you want to go. And this is how we're going to actually do it. Now that employee's following you anywhere you ever want them to go.
And, that I think direction, purpose, processes, consistency, accountability, we have to adhere to those same best practices and principles. Just as like what I was responsible for growing up in the business. I was being held accountable. I was being measured. I had purpose. I knew what direction I was going in. And that in of itself really helped me to flourish. I can't imagine having to deal in some of these stores that really lack they don't even have a description for a position and what it really entails. What are my responsibilities? What are my duties? What are my expectations? How do you hold me accountable to what? How am I being measured to what? What processes? What training is in place on a consistent basis that I can actually sink my teeth into? Why aren't all the managers in sync? Why aren't we all a part of that training plan, from sales to F&I? What's going on with that? And the reason I say that is I get a little frustrated. There are moments I get really frustrated, but I get frustrated because I want finance to be a part of that training session with our sales associates. And yet, we have GMs, I have sales managers that say, we don't need F&I managers involved in our training. And I'm like, well, what kind of training are you doing? Number one. Number two, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think that comes from, that's a double-edged sword, right? I think everybody should be involved in the training for sure, right? And when you talk about, first I'll address, you talk about the management staff not being in sync, right? When I was growing up in the sales industry, you had a direct, clear path, right? Mm-hmm. You were a salesperson, then you became a closer, then you became a finance manager, and then you landed the holy grail of being a sales manager. Like, the sales desk was sacred. It's where, it's what gods were made of. That's what you aspired to be, and you had to go through this process, right?
Right.
And now it's not revered that way. The industry, the sales industry inside of the dealership isn't revered that way, right? You got finance managers that wouldn't leave the finance office to go be a sales manager for nothing, right? They want to sit in that box forever, right?
Right. Exactly.
And typically a lot of it's because there's so much money there's so little profit in the front end, typically, not in these times, but typically, and so much back end money where the finance managers only paid on that back end, they make more than the sales managers do. So they've got that promotion to sales management becomes a pay cut.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And that's become a fatal flaw, in my opinion, of how our industry's been ran. And that's why we don't have everybody on the same page. You don't have this clear path. You don't have this same clear chain of command even. Right. And we've, as an industry in a lot of dealerships, we've lost this structure. Right. And I think that's what adds to a lot of people not being on the same page, a lot of people not being on the same in sync. Right. And that, once again, adds to employee turnover. Right.
Yeah.
Because they don't know, they're not confident in what's happening. They don't have a path. People want to grow. Right. I've taken pay cuts or less pay than I could go get elsewhere if you're going to give me some knowledge and allow me to grow. Right. When I took my first job as a general manager, I left a great paying job to take definitely a pay cut, but I wanted to get my experience. Right. And a lot of people right now aren't willing to take those chances on, doing a little bit less, going to a smaller store, taking a lesser pay right now to gain some experience for the greater long-term career good.
Well, I also see, Joe, that a lot of times we have, and dealers are really good at doing react, right? They react. They're not proactive. They react. That's what we do. That's
100%.
We're reacting. And so, when we have that fallout in that F&I department or sales or at the desk, so it's just, we're just got to plug and play. We got to go. We can't stop business. So here we are. And we keep doing it time and time and time again. We keep beating our heads up against the wall and expecting a different result.
Right.
And
definition of insanity.
It is. And I'm just, how and why we don't look at that. I don't get that. So we bring somebody else's problems into the dealership and here we go again. And let me tell you what my other dealer does and how they run their business. And it's like, well, wait a second. It's my business. This is how we run it. I don't need to be running the same way that this other dealer down the street, has been running their business. If it was so good, how come you're here?
Right.
Where's the culture?
And, that is a systemic problem in our industry, right? I was just talking to a different dealer a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the bench, right? Having a bench. When I was a GM at Sonic, years and years ago, that was a big part of our playbook. We always had people who could fill a role, right? To where, if an F&I manager got sick, if they were having a baby, anything like that, you had somebody that could step in. And that was always, when I talked about that game plan, right? Hey, we're going to get you trained up, right? To a salesperson as a incentive to work in here with us, right? We're going to have you trained. So when F&I has a backup, right, we got a third office you can go wang some deals in, right? When so-and-so is going to go on vacation in X period of time, you're going to fill in. And when you have your bench lined up, right, they're doing it your way. They're doing it with your process. Right. When that F&I manager that's absolutely killing it actually does want to go on the desk, you can afford to promote them because you have somebody that can fill in that F&I role. Right. That guy that you had on that bench. Right. And in turn, that F&I guy that wants to, or gal that wants to become a sales manager or general sales manager, you're training them on that bench. Right. And you continually have this revolving upswing of people being promoted from within. Right. And reality is when you don't have that, that's what leads to turnover. Right. I had one salesperson in the last dealership I ran. He must have came to me 3 or 4 times, said, hey, I'm going to quit because so-and-so promised me an F&I position. Said, okay, totally understand if that's what's going to happen. All I want you to do for me before you quit here, I want you to sign your F&I pay plan over there. And he's like, well, I'm not going to start in F&I. I got to go on the line, show them I can do what I can do. Then they're going to promote me into F&I. I'm like, yeah, they're just blowing smoke, man. That's not a real deal. Right. And this particular salesperson, I love dearly. Right. And I'm like, hey, I told you, I will put you through F&I school. I will train you. Right. And when we have an opening here, right, you're going to be ready for that position. Right. In the dealership that I ran on 5 years throughout the entire dealership, part sales and service, I only turned over 11 people.
So,
and that was, and 4 of those got promoted to higher positions in sister stores. So I didn't even have choices to keep them. And so sometimes you get into a really good dealership with a really good group of people to where, one of my F&I guys was there 13 years. That doesn't leave a lot of room to fill in some holes. So that's why I would always let anybody that truly had an opportunity to grow somewhere else, I would always say, hey, good luck to you. I'm here to support you in any way I can. Right. Because that's how I operate. But we got to do a better job of supporting our employees, getting them ready for the next step, and getting them feeling that they're appreciated. You get somebody that feels they're appreciated, they'll stay through pay cuts. They'll stay through tough times. Right. But when they don't feel appreciated, that's when they jump ship.
well, I had, and I don't know whether or not, and I don't want to mention her name, but I think I know who it's from a dealer I know. And basically, he puts the onus back on the sales managers, and he's putting it back on to the individual who actually hired the candidate. So if they fail, first time, okay. Second time, maybe not so okay. Third time, it's on you. And there's a penalty. So I feel like it's not like I like throwing out penalties to people. I can't say that. But I think it's time that we are taking accountability to our hiring decisions. And if in the event that individual's failing, they're not failing because they failed. You failed. You failed.
Yeah, we failed them for
It's
sure.
on you. You're the one who
anytime-
made the hiring decision. If they fail, it's on you. Why? It's like, oh, this guy or gal just couldn't make it. Well, no, they couldn't make it because you didn't do your job. I love that accountability. And I think that's exactly what's needed in this industry. So if you're going to go ahead, make the decision to hire this person, that's on you. It's part of, and you know what? Here's the thing. If in fact you find 3 people that can't make it under your management, maybe you don't need to be there.
Well, that has to be a top-down approach, right? That goes for the general manager that hires the general sales manager.
Yeah.
Right. And that general sales manager that hires the sales managers and F&I, and then ultimately the salespeople. Right. So it has to be a top-down approach. Right. So if the general manager is not taking responsibility, that his generals or their general sales managers not doing the right thing. Right. Have they been trained to do it? Right. Because I know this. Right. I've seen hundreds of people become sales managers. Right. And all of a sudden be responsible for sales teams that they only got a sales manager job because they could sell 20 cars a month. And that has nothing to do with managing people.
Exactly. And how many times have I seen that? A lot of times. And, and that's not necessary. That certainly may not be the right person to help and to mold and to manage and to grow other people.
Yeah. So what has that general manager done to teach this new sales manager, general sales manager, on how to manage people?
Well,
to get the most out of their employees.
well, again,
Right.
this is where they should be having leadership training.
Right. And so, and then that to me is more the problem in what you're saying, in that is it's not a top-down approach, right? The general managers saying, hey, you can't hire anybody. You every hire they wash out after 90 days. What's wrong with you? And what needs to happen is, hey, what have you done to show me how to hire people?
And exactly. So, I don't want, here again, this is not a browbeating session on
Oh, yeah.
turnover, but I'm hoping that that the dealers and viewers that are in on this one is this or viewing this presentation really understand that we have got to do a better job here with turnover and hiring practices. And, I know we're going to talk more on another segment about hiring females. And frankly, I think females make great F&I candidates, but you know what? They're not going to tolerate the nonsense. They're just not going to do it. You can't just point them in an upstairs room somewhere to go watch Joe Verde tapes and say, have at it. It's just not how we are. We need a little bit of guidance, for crying out loud. And I say that, and it's probably the same thing for, male as well. I mean, instead of shoving me upstairs to watch a video and then say, have at it, go on out there and sell a car, have some fun. There's more to it than that.
No, you're 1,000% correct. And when I ran dealerships, I got this. I'm not the inventor of it, but I stole it, so I'm going to just say it's mine. It was a really simple formula, right? Employee satisfaction equals customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction equals return on investment, right? But it all starts with that employee satisfaction, right? And employees want to know that they're appreciated. They want to know what to do. They want to know they have a future, right? And at the simplest level, they want to get taught how to do their job. And that even starts with a clear job description.
Amen.
Right.
That's what I said. You mean job descriptions, where are they? When you hire someone, get clear on exactly what you want, because every time your expectations are different than what their expectations are, it's failure. Lack of communication. I'll tell you right now, communication.
Yeah.
That's a biggie.
How many job descriptions have you seen, right? That if there is a written one or that doesn't coincide with their pay plan, so their job duties are different than how they get paid.
Yeah.
Right. And how the job description and how they get paid is different than the goal of what the dealership is. So you have everybody fighting, do what's right for the dealership, do what's right for me, do what's right for me to make money.
Yeah.
And they're not in sync. That's exactly how employees get frustrated, because you don't have a clear, concise message of getting your whole troops going in the right direction.
I read a post today, actually, on LinkedIn. And one way to aggravate, to frustrate the living daylights out of someone or a good employee is to cater to the employee.
Tolerate a bad one.
That's it. Did you read the same one?
No, it's
so true.
Yeah. That's where, you take this new hire salesperson, right? And you say, hey, you got to do this, 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 and this. And then they're like, wait, that guy that's selling 20 cars a month, he don't do any of that stuff.
Right.
He doesn't have to show up on time. He doesn't have to move the lot around. He doesn't have to put balloons out. Why do I?
Exactly.
And it's exactly, that's how you lose your employees, for sure.
I mean, how many times have we often said, just as a joke, and I'm sure everyone who's in the car business will appreciate this, and maybe it's outside the car business too, but you wonder, oh my gosh, how is this gal getting away with this stuff? I mean, do they have a picture of my boss, with, I don't know, doing crazy stuff with animals? I don't know, but what is going on around here? And that's what we think, because it's like, it just blows us away. We all have to do one thing. And at least there's some accountability somewhere. But when that other person gets, and maybe not necessarily are they all that great either.
You
That
want to
can
know why
happen,
this
and
goes
you're
full? We
like-
brought this full circle because they don't have a bench,
That's
right? So they're afraid to act up. A sales manager is afraid to discipline that 30-car salesperson, because if they lose them, they think they're going to lose 30 car sales.
That's exactly what you hear. We're not
But
going to
it's-
do anything with that 30-car salesperson. Are you kidding me, Becky? Not going to happen.
But in reality, right, those 30 car sales are going to still happen, right? But if you have a bench of well-trained salespeople, you know, that F&I guy or gal, right, that refuses to turn their deals in on time, they get the boot because you have somebody on the bench waiting to fill that role.
Well, what I found with that too is that a lot of times when F&I knows that there's people on the bench waiting to get in that have been trained up, you'd be surprised how much they pay
How about
attention.
better than they are, right?
They're like, wait a second. I think I'll go out there and do the interview after all.
Right. And absolutely, right.
Yeah.
You got to protect yourself. And so it's having that bench. It's like, they get the quarterback, the veteran quarterback gets the hot new rookie on his tail, right? They get drafted, right? The veteran quarterback's like, hey, I got to make sure I do everything right to keep my job.
Exactly.
Right? And that's what having a solid bench will do. Right. And who benefits from that? The veteran quarterback actually does. The team does. Right. So if we got a better bench, if we got a stronger bench, even if the bench doesn't get promoted right away, it raises everybody else up. Everybody else steps their game up.
Yeah.
And when your game stepped up and you're winning, everybody's having fun. Everybody's having fun. Everybody stays at the dealership.
Everybody
really
wants
easy.
to hang out with a winner who,
Right?
if I'm a winner, I sure as heck don't want to be hanging out with a loser. I can go someplace else, man. I mean, because that's who I am. I'm
Absolutely.
a winner. I don't want to be hanging around with somebody who doesn't get it. There's no accountability or purpose.
No, absolutely 100% agree.
Well, I want to tell you, Joe, thank you again for making it on my F&I Master Series Forum, The Digital Age. And I'm going to tell you something. You see this Atlanta behind you, the background, there's a purpose for that. Because in the fall, building momentum, have another online event in the summer. But come the fall, I don't know if I can get you to California to Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm going to try. And we're going to have a live event back in Alpharetta, Georgia at the Marriott. And that was when I had in 2019, July, my first F&I roundtable. And that's where it was. So that's where we're going. And I'm building up the momentum, and hopefully you'll be able to join us there. And we are going to have a blast and really good content as well.
I'll be there for sure. You couldn't keep me away. You send me an invite. You tell me when it is. Even if you don't send me an invite, I'll figure it out and I'll get there.
Oh, I'll make sure you got an invite. Don't even worry about that, Joe. So, Joe, thank you again. It was a pleasure.
All right. Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
At Autify, we power the end-to-end digital sales and finance experiences of the most innovative brands and deliver funded deals. And we're excited to build upon this with the launch of the next evolution of our commerce platform, Deal Center. Deal Center extends the deal-making power of the sales desk to everyone in the dealership, from your BDC, sales, F&I, and management. And it empowers them to more effectively work deals in the showroom and online in a shared experience with the customer. Deal Center enables your team to present side-by-side vehicle comparisons with details of the deal, send remote deals, and pencil deals alongside the customer. It helps your management quarterback the sales floor and structure deals in seconds, run soft credit pulls, and gain visibility into important financial calculations. And it adds efficiency to your finance process by enabling a customer to complete a digital credit app and receive firm offers of credit in real time. Dealers using Deal Center see more trust, efficiency, and profitability in their sales process. So if you're ready to enable your team with a digital platform that will supercharge their performance, get started with Deal Center today. Reach out to us to learn more.
Veronica, it is a pleasure this morning to have you at F&I Master Series Forum, the digital age. And, you know, for our viewers and dealers, I want you to share your background and how you got into this business, what you're doing, and what are you doing now? So if you will.
Hi, Becky. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. As you know, I'm the EVP of Strategic Partnerships here at DealerBuilt. I just passed my 10-year anniversary here. It's a phenomenal place to be. I get the opportunity to work with all of the vendors in our space, as well as all the OEMs. It's phenomenal. I actually came here from one of our existing clients. I came out of retail, actually. Probably most people don't realize that. I worked with 2 large Ford stores down in Southern California that are now 3 large Ford stores as of a little over a year and a half ago. It's pretty exciting.
What did you do for 3 years with these dealerships? Come on,
oh my
bring
gosh.
it on.
Well, it's kind of funny. My background prior to automotive, I was in investment banking, business development in the investment banking world. And one day a buddy of mine, who I'm still very good friends with, called me up, and he had just taken a job at Ken Grody Ford. And he called me and he says, I know you have a client that does work with SEO and websites. And I just started working with this great Ford store. Do you think your client could come help them out? And they were tied up. So I stopped by and spent 4 hours with the GM and part owner and learned real quick the best way to get anything from a car dealer is tell them no. And by the end of my 4 hours there, they were offering me a job, and I had no intention of working in a dealership. And here we are 13 years later, and I worked for them for 3 years. I started out as a marketing director, turned the Ford Oval green. That was back in the propane days.
That's
for
right.
the Roush project.
Yeah.
I did marketing. They were dead set determined to make me a car salesperson. I was dead set determined not to. They won. I ended up being a car salesperson.
Go figure. I think that's what happens to a lot of people. I have no intention of going into the car business. Never, ever, ever, never. And then somehow or the other, they end up in the car business and stay forever. But you, 3 years. It was good. It was a good 3 years. You learned a lot.
I did. I actually learned every possible position in the dealership. Being with Ford, I was a trainer. I didn't stand on the line. That's where I drew the line. But I did help build 2 pretty lucrative BDC departments before BDC was a thing.
Oh, wow. Okay, good.
And I did finance. I desked my own deals. I ran a team of boys. I called them boys, even though they were older than me. I know that's silly, but I loved my boys. I was one of the only females there at the time.
Weren't too many females at a dealership at the time. If I remember, I was the only female coming into a few of these dealerships, and they've never had before, but I said, I've got this. I can do it.
Right.
So like you, the same thing.
You know, we didn't have female salespeople. I was one of the first there, but they had females in other departments. And they ended up being, as the years went on, and now today they have a lot of female impactful positions in their dealerships. And it's fantastic to see. So
it is fantastic to see. So let me ask you this. You know, there are a lot of people in a dealership or that don't really thrive off of a paycheck so much. I mean, they like the paycheck, don't get me wrong, but it's not always about the money. There's more there to, and how can a dealer help to empower that individual for success other than this paycheck?
Well, you know, the paycheck matters to most people. It really does. But the culture and the work environment are so much more important to most people. If you have a good environment and a good place to work where people truly care, that means a lot. Especially when you're trying, in my opinion, when you're trying to hire women. They want a safe environment where they can thrive, where they feel like they can give back, and where they can grow. At least from what I've found, you know, men aren't as loyal to that environment. They want their paycheck. You know, if they get offered, and I am stereotyping, I don't mean to, because it does, from what I've found, in a dealership, they get offered more money down the road. They may leave. They're not going to be as loyal to
That's
an opportunity to grow, to give back, to know that somebody's got their back. It's a lot more important to those of us women.
Well, I see that. I see that a lot. You know, you give, you know, a pat on the back. Hey, let me show you the ropes. Let me give you the education. Let me support you. And you're going to get a whole heck of a lot more out of it. So let me ask you this. You know, we talk about, you know, turnover. There's a lot of turnover in these dealerships across the country. And specifically, there's a lot of turnover when it comes to females in the retail industry. So we know that we also, with that turnover, we could likely reduce some of that if, in fact, we have a culture where we're promoting from within. We have a process. We have a roadmap. We have a career advancement opportunities that would really help for these employees to know that there is a where to go in their career at a automotive retail store. So what do you say to dealers, especially those that are dealing with so much turnover and maybe considering hiring or wanting to hire females for a sales position to promote maybe into F&I? Because women do make great F&I managers.
Well, that's a good question. And I think it's important in any role, any business, not just in the retail automotive dealership, but specifically in a dealership, like I mentioned, I think they need to feel like they have a safe place and a place that wants them to be there. You need to create a culture that is welcoming to women and families, and not make them feel like they're walking into a boys club or into somewhere that they wouldn't want their own daughters or their mothers or anyone like that to be going. It needs to be welcoming. But at the same time, yes, I agree with you. Women do make great F&I managers because they typically have more empathy and are warmer towards a customer. Whether they're a stone cold seller like a man, they don't come across that way to the customer on the average. It's just a technique that, unfortunately, boys, we've mastered. Sorry.
Well, it is true. I think I have, a lot more personality. I care about my customer, and I happen to be a multitasker as well as detail oriented. And I think all those traits really help me to be the best as an F&I person. Let's face it. So here's the thing. I have also worked in dealerships all over the country. And what I'm seeing is that we are actually pulling females from the service. We're pulling them from accounting. We are pulling them from sales to promote to F&I. And if there's another position to promote from, obviously I'm all about F&I. But that being said, I think it's a great move because in F&I, it really helps you to have a true understanding of what it takes to put deals together. I mean, and that position in of itself really helps you to have a better understanding of the dealership operations.
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, I know you're all about F&I, but I think women in any position in a dealership is helpful. I mean, I know you read that I purchased Women in Automotive recently.
Oh, yeah. Please
along
share
with
that.
A few other women in our industry. But for that, we're going to be offering training and career pathing for women for all positions in a dealership, including entry level all the way up to leadership and executive. So, it's really important to get everyone in at any position. And when you're recruiting and hiring for a dealership, you definitely need to make sure you at least open the door for your employees to apply from within before you go outside. You don't want to create a culture of resentment that you only hire from outside. You want to give everyone an opportunity, even if it's your service advisor applying for an F&I position, or maybe it's your accounting gal that wants to apply for a service position, because you never know who's got that hidden talent that's going to fill that position you have, and give them an honest chance. Even if they don't make it, at least you've given them an opportunity to fill that position within before you go outside, so you don't create that resentment. But once you've at least expanded and allowed them to voice, that they're looking to go to that role, create an opportunity that they can train towards that. Encourage them to reach outside their current position or their comfort zone and grow towards a position that they really might want. You'll have happier clients, and you'll have happier employees, because they're not going to go anywhere unless you shut them down. When you shut down your employees, they're not going to be loyal to you, and they're going to go at the first chance they have, no matter what company you run.
So congratulations again with regard to acquiring women in automotive. And I think it couldn't be better. It is amazing, great news to share on this event today. So thank you so much for that. I think you're going to bring so much to the table when it comes to really serving up the automotive industry as a whole. And, talent is hard to come by. And it's so important that we are embracing everyone. We're giving everyone an opportunity to have a better understanding what's going on in automotive retail, that it is a great place to be, and that you can make a great living and a great career, and also advancement in automotive retail. So, I mean, I'm loving this, that you're a part of this, that you're taking it on. It's not an easy task, but hey,
No, but it is
that's
exciting.
survive. That's for sure. So, in any kind of final remarks as we close this, our live here, Veronica.
No, I appreciate you having me on, and I look forward to keeping in touch, and anything I can do to help the finance industry or any industry for women, I really appreciate it. Feel free to reach out to me anytime, and look forward to our next big event. It'll be in October. Watch for details. As
Absolutely.
you may have missed, we did partner with Driving Sales, not just for reach and engagement, but also for our mentoring and training platform. So
I
there's
think
a lot of
that
big things
is
coming.
terrific. Driving Sales is awesome. I mean, it's a Jared Hamilton, right? Do I have that right?
Yes, it is.
I see. I didn't forget Jared. That's terrific. That's awesome. So before we close, there is one question that
Sure.
I do have for you. So, and so, what do you think? And I promise this will be it, but sometimes dealers are shy when it comes to bringing women in automotive retail. They feel as if the hours are just way too much. It's like, I get it. I'm with you, Becky, but you know what? We're working a lot of hours and they're just not ready to work the hours. What do you have to say about that? And then I'll let you go.
That women aren't ready to work those hours?
Can't work
Seriously?
the hours. Can't work the hours, retail hours. Have
Maybe
a
they
hard
should
time
see my
working.
time card.
Yeah, I know.
Most women I know are the hardest women I know, hardest working women I know. I would say don't ever judge a woman and expect that they can't work the hours. Have you seen what they do when they have kids? Come on.
No, right. Are you kidding me? What's retail all about? Some of these guys are working until 9 or 10 o'clock at night at retail stores, Macy's, Dillard's, etc. I mean, come on. So, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So I just wanted you to go ahead and back me up on that one. So,
No, absolutely. Like I said, I work with OEMs and vendors, as well as managing a lot of our key accounts here at DealerBuilt. So I work with almost 500 dealer rooftops across the country, in every time zone. I mean, I work from 7 in the morning until midnight sometimes, and even get calls on Sundays in the middle of the night. So anyone that wants to challenge that females don't work just as hard as any man out there, please give me a call, because I guarantee you I'm going to answer. I'm sorry about that. My light just went out. But in addition to that, some of the hardest working women I know run OEMs. They run vendors. They run dealerships. I mean, if anyone's ever met Liza Borges,
yeah. Yeah.
Carrie Weiss,
Yeah.
Kathy Gilbert.
Yep.
I mean, come on. These are some of the most amazing women. Erica Wells.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Those women do not have an off switch. Robin Wilson. I mean, you do not get an off switch. You do not get hours in a day that they're not working. It doesn't happen. So anyone that wants to tell me that women can't work the hours, go ahead, bring it.
Hey, here we go. We're going to bring it. We're going to do this. So thank you again, Veronica. I knew it. I knew we could land on that high note, and it is. And again, thank you so very much for being on this F&I Master Series Forum, The Digital Age. Thank you.
Thank you. Anytime.
So, Lyamen, Savy, and welcome to the F&I Master Series Forum, the digital age. And it is certainly a pleasure to have you here with us. And boy, let me tell you, you have a lot to share with our dealers and viewers. But first, before we get into all of that with what you do and how you do it, share with us your background and how you even got into this space to begin with, the automotive retail space.
Yeah, so my background is I've been doing marketing for 19 years. I specialize in customer acquisition. So basically, every time a company would hire me, the reason they hired me is because they needed help with the sales. How do you acquire a customer, whether it's to generate a lead and pass it to a salesperson to close, or how do you get a customer to buy directly online without even speaking to a salesperson? And so I've done everything from paid media, email marketing, direct mail, upper funnel, like TV commercials, billboard ads, out-of-home campaigns, everything, you name it. And of course, because my specialty is customer acquisition, I'm also really good at analytics. So I'm a total data nerd. Everything I do is based on data, and I test things all the time, experiment things, and then analyze the data, and then based on the data, optimize the results. So that's what I'm really good at.
Well, okay, so you established your company how long ago?
The 321 Ignition has been around for 3 years. Actually, it was just our 3-year anniversary this January, so January 2019.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's talk about what exactly you do. What does your company do in helping dealers and their websites? I mean, as far as making them much more mobile ready. And I think you have this phrase, the future is not in e-commerce, but it's in m-commerce.
Yes.
So I'm going to let you go ahead and explain how all that works.
Yeah, so basically, I started my company because I was helping a friend who worked for a car dealership, and she was asking me for my marketing advice. You know, I came over to her dealership, and I was analyzing her agency, how her paid media agency was performing. I was analyzing her website performance, and I immediately noticed that majority of her website traffic was mobile. It was over 70% was mobile. And then when I started, talking to more dealerships, I realized actually, when I talk to dealerships and I ask them, what do you think is going to help you get more sales? Usually dealerships will tell me, oh, I need to spend more money on marketing. I need to spend more money on SEO, whatever. And they don't realize they actually don't have a website traffic problem. Their website is getting plenty of website visitors. But the problem is majority of those consumers who are visiting dealership websites are doing it on a mobile device. I usually see it over 70%. In some cases, I've actually seen 89% of dealership website traffic is mobile. So imagine if majority of people who are going to dealership website is on a mobile device, how many dealerships have actually looked at what their website customer experience is like on a mobile device instead of when they're at the store, sitting at the desktop or a laptop computer and looking at it that way. And so if you visit dealership websites on a mobile device, you see usually it's a really terrible experience. And the future of e-commerce, and by e-commerce, like e-commerce is when how do businesses, retail stores, acquire customers online. That's e-commerce. But the future of e-commerce is actually m-commerce, mobile commerce. What is the experience like on a mobile device? And that's what 321 Ignition does. We're number one mobile first website provider for car dealerships and also RV dealerships.
Oh,
and
wow.
that's what we specialize in. Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about the fact that by a dealer being more responsive with mobile, which makes sense if you have more than 60 or 70% of customers shopping using their mobile device rather than their desktop device, it would make sense to make sure that you have the ability to be able to transact or not transact so much, but be able to submit a credit application via online and actually make it stick. There's a lot more to that process that I don't think we all think through. And where you have it user-friendly, fast and easy, and you're actually capturing more credit application submissions than you would on a desktop computer. Share that with us.
We actually, credit apps is one of the most qualified leads a dealership could get, right? Because if somebody's filling out a credit application, they're pretty serious. They're not just, wondering, hey, what's the best deal I could get on the car? They're actually wanting to know, like, okay, I'm ready to work with this dealership and I want to know what I could get pre-approved for. So that's the most qualified lead. And our credit application has a 69% completion rate, which is like unheard of. And we have that high of a completion rate for multiple reasons. One is because it's mobile first. So as an example, when you're designing a website for a mobile first experience, you have to think about a mobile user context, meaning like in a given moment, in a given time, what would be the most helpful for consumers when they're on your website on a mobile device? So as an example, imagine you're filling out a credit application, which is a very long application, right?
Yeah.
So the key is to have empathy for a consumer. Imagine them trying to complete an action, complete a full credit application with one finger. They're not on a keyboard with 2 hands, 10 fingers. They're using one finger to complete the credit application. So our credit application, we have a bunch of integrations, like, for example, Google Maps integration, which is the most basic thing, but for some reason, none of our competitors have it. So what that means is, imagine if a consumer is filling out a credit app and they have to put in their address, instead of having to put in city or street, city, state, zip code one by one with one finger, we have Google Maps integration. So as soon as a consumer starts typing, it starts giving them suggestions. And all they have to do is click on one of the suggestions and it auto-completes everything. So that's one example. Another example is we know that in marketing, the shorter the form, the more likely somebody to complete it. But when somebody's filling out a credit application, we need a lot of information. Do you have a co-buyer? How long you've lived in this address? So our credit application actually is smart. So what it does, it starts off as very short form. And then based on how consumers are filling it out, it either adds fields or subtracts fields. So for example, if a consumer says, hey, I have a co-buyer, then it shows co-buyers fields and says, enter co-buyer's information.
Wow.
If you say co-buyer lives in the same address as I do, so you click on the little checkbox and it removes the enter co-buyer's address information. So based on how consumers are actually answering the questions, it either adds additional fields or subtracts additional fields. It makes it easy and asking the most relevant question. And then we have an amazing partnership with 700 Credit, who I absolutely love. They're actually really on the cutting edge when it comes to API integrations. Their competitors are not the same way at all. They would question and ask, why do we need an API integration? Versus 700 Credit, they came to me and said, hey, Lyamen, we have an API integration. Let's integrate. And so I love that company. And so we're solving 2 problems. So one, is a customer experience, which is how do we make it easy for consumers to fill out a credit application? But the second part is the process at the dealership. How do we make it easier for the F&I managers to collect that information, not have to re-enter that information? So because we integrate with 700 Credit, we're able to, in the back end, through API in a secure way, automatically pass all the credit applications to 700 Credit, to Route 1, to DealerTrack, to Cotto, whoever the dealership wants. And so that way the F&I managers don't have to manually re-enter anything. So we're solving both problems. We're solving the consumer experience problem and we're solving the process problem with the dealership, thanks to 700 Credit.
Well, I got to tell you, just the fact of being able to retrieve that information, meaning being able to submit that credit application, have more credit applications submitted to the dealer, obviously it's going to win more sales and help to, impact that F&I department. Of course, this is all about the F&I Master Series Forum, but why do you suppose some of the other providers aren't working on this API integration? Because I tell you right now, that drives a lot of our dealers it's so frustrating.
Yeah, I question that all the time. Why do my competitors do that? My background, because I'm not from automotive, my background is technology. Microsoft, House Values, which is now Zillow, Capital One. Outside of automotive, API integrations is like minimal viable product. It's table stakes. Like, you can't be a technology provider not having API integrations. If you think about Salesforce actually, Forrester predicted is going to be the next $1 trillion company. They're $50 billion right now. So they're going to be the next $1 trillion company. And what made Salesforce the most powerful CRM? It's not because of the user experience. It's because they have the most API integrations. Of course, API integrations cost a lot more developer resources. It's more expensive than just slapping on an iframe, but it's the right thing to do for the dealerships, for the consumers, all around. And, dealerships right now, they have to go through digital transformation. I don't know if many people have heard of that term. But digital transformation, dealerships are kind of handicapped because they're depending on vendors. And so vendors are not providing them with solutions to help them go through the digital transformation. That's what's actually keeping dealerships behind. And an automotive is at least 10 years behind right now. Coming from outside of automotive, I could tell you, like, the things that I've seen, the automotive, unfortunately, is at least 10 years behind because technology providers are not doing things the right way, like outside of automotive they do.
So, that is true. I'm hearing a lot about the disconnect, and it is frustrating because, we're talking about, the customer, once they land on the dealership website, then what? You're talking about, okay, we have the solution because 60% or more land on your dealership website using an iPhone. That's where it's going.
Over 70%.
Okay, 70%. Okay. And that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot.
That's
so
majority.
And you've got to be able to engage the customer way. That's the whole idea. And then from there, you've got to be able to connect those dots, plug it. We've got that unplug thing going on from the time the customer lands on the dealership website. Now you're talking mobile devices and how we have to do a better job in communicating the customer way. And then there, digital transformation once that customer gets into the dealership and how that all connects. I mean, it's so critical.
Yeah, the consumers expect the same in-store experience as they do online. I was actually at a conference. I live in Washington State, so the home of Amazon and the Nordstroms, and Nordstrom's is known for their number one customer service, right?
Yes.
So I was once at a conference, and a Nordstrom CEO asked the audience. He said, "Take a guess. Who do you think is number one in customer service?" Obviously, I'm at a Nordstrom's conference, so I'm thinking, well, Nordstrom's. And he actually said it's not Nordstrom's, it's Amazon. The reason why Amazon rated number one in customer service, because customer service doesn't just mean what is the customer experience like when they're talking to a salesperson during business hours, but it's what's the customer experience when they're not even talking to a salesperson. It could be at 2:00 in the morning when they're on your website. And so that's where, it's so important for dealerships to have the omni-channel experience. The omni-channel meaning like consumers expect this, they should be able to answer their own questions online on a dealership website as they would go into the dealership store and actually talking to a salesperson. And especially now, with the thanks to World Wide Web, consumers most of the time are actually more educated than the salespeople are.
Especially when it comes to EV.
Exactly. It's because the consumers do all their research online. And so by the time they walk into the store, they're actually very much more informed. And the goal is to make sure consumers are doing all that research on the dealership website instead of on Auto Trader or Car Gurus. Because once a consumer goes to the marketplace, now no longer a dealership has a competitive advantage. The only way they could compete is based on price. But if a dealership allows consumers to do their research on the dealership website, now dealership is actually offering a unique experience. And that actually allows dealerships to compete not based on price, but based on experience, which increases profitability as well and helps close deals faster.
So looking at all of this change, I mean, this disruption, historically, things are changing a lot faster.
Oh, yes.
Right? Since COVID. I mean, the change has been dramatic. How do you help dealers to navigate through this change? I mean, some just just blindfolders on and go, nah, not in my world. This isn't happening in my world. But then you have a lot of those aggressive, competitive dealers who are saying, you know what? I get it. We don't have to lose our market share to Carvana. We don't have to lose our market share to CarMax. And they're a big player. Let's not kid ourselves. They're doing everything they can to communicate the customer way. You might even want to share something that you may know what's going on with CarMax, because from what I understand, they're blowing it up.
Yeah, so a couple of things. Becky, you mentioned about the transformation. So Satya, the CEO of Microsoft, he actually said pandemic accelerated the digital transformation. What most companies would have taken 7 years to go through, pandemic forced them to go through within 1 year. Even government companies, government usually takes a longer time to go through the digital transformation. But because of pandemic, it actually accelerated that. And Carvana last year, I don't know how many people know this, but Carvana is a publicly traded company, so all of this information is public knowledge. And they actually announced that they sold over close to 500,000 cars, so almost 500,000 cars. Carvana sold digitally online. What is Carvana doing is it's changing consumers' expectations. It's putting pressure on the local dealerships to actually provide similar type of experience. So if you go to Carvana website on your mobile device and compare them to the dealership website on a mobile device, you'll see the drastic difference. And by the way, in addition to Carvana, there's also Vroom, there's also Shift. And by the way, Shift actually has physical locations and of course digital presence. But over 80% of Shift technology, Shift company sales were digital e-commerce. It's like also Shift is a publicly traded company, so all this information is public knowledge. Over 80% of their sales were online, even though they have physical locations. And as a matter of fact, Shift on NASDAQ is registered as Shift Technology. It's not registered as a, like AutoNation. I don't know what they're registered as, but they're registered on NASDAQ as a Shift Technology. And there's actually Jane McBain. He's a Forrester analyst. Forrester is the #1 largest market research company in the world, the most powerful one. And they've actually said that their prediction in the next 5 years, every company is going to become a technology company. So with dealerships, you have to think about it and look around and think about it. Are we acting like a technology company or are we acting like a traditional dealership? And how many consumers want to go visit a traditional dealership versus a technology company?
Well, I think we can have our cake and eat it too. I think the consumer still wants to go ahead and, enjoy that brick and mortar experience, but they also want to have their cake, and meaning they want the information beforehand. They want to engage sooner. They want to fact find, but they also want that online experience to what's going on, taking place in dealership. They want to streamline that. They want to reduce the friction. They want to get in and out, take delivery of their vehicle without a bunch of games. And this is exactly what this whole thing is all about, right? That digital transformation is all about that. So,
well, here's the thing. It actually gives dealerships a competitive advantage, just like Best Buy. So Best Buy, is competing head-to-head against Amazon. But how is Best Buy still in business? And it's actually, they're killing it right now. And they're killing it because Best Buy has a competitive advantage over Amazon, and that is local physical presence. Just like dealerships, they have local physical presence. They're closer to the consumer than Carvana is or Shift is. So that gives dealerships a competitive advantage. But they still have to act like technology companies. They still have to offer omni-channel experience.
Yes, absolutely that. They have to, decide that, what, we're in the 21st century. In technology, what I think doesn't replace the human factor. It only enhances what we're doing.
Exactly. Yes. Consumers are doing the research online to enhance their shopping experience at the store. And it also, by the way, helps dealerships too. So imagine, for example, if we know historically it used to take 4 hours, for F&I manager to get a consumer approved for a car loan. Well, imagine if a consumer fill out a credit application online on their mobile device. By the time consumer walks into the dealership, now the salesperson actually already knows what the consumer pre-qualified for. They're already not wasting their time showing them cars they're not going to be able to qualify for. So it actually helps both. It helps the dealership and the consumer. But online is supposed to enhance the shopping experience at the store.
Well, 700 Credit certainly is a terrific credit company in that they sponsored the event. So I thank you very much. And they're also offering, just as a reminder here, guys, it's perfect timing for this. They are offering 2 months, 60 days of free soft pulls. So you got to go ahead, make sure you take advantage of that. And while you're here for Lyamen, is there anything you would like to go ahead and, I don't know, offer out to our dealers, viewers, if they participate, if they're on your platform, anything you want to, I don't know, maybe a giveaway or something? I don't know, maybe or maybe not.
Great question, Vicky. For your audience, we'll give them 20% off if they sign up for our 3-to-1 Ignition Mobile First website. So
okay, did you hear that? Did you hear what she said? I got her 20% off on the 3-2-1 Ignition. So here's what I need. I need a hashtag 3-2-1 Ignition, and I need your email, and I need your name in the chat. I know this is something you want to take advantage of. And Lyamen, thank you so very much for taking the time to be here with us at the F&I Master Series Forum, the digital age. Boy, let me tell you something. You have amazing energy and passion in what you do. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
It was fun. Thank
What an amazing day. Fantastic speakers, right? All hit home again. All had something really important to share with everyone. Remember tomorrow, please don't forget to look for that new link I sent to you in your email. Tomorrow is going to be a big day. And we have an amazing lineup of speakers. We begin at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And remember, Brian Kramer, the general manager from Germain Toyota Lincoln, is our keynote speaker and will be kicking us off. Paul Nicholas, Automoto, is up afterwards, and he has our sponsor with a great message. Joe St. John with Stone Eagle, another great icon in the industry. Ted Ings with Fix Ops Roundtable. Matt Lasher, West Herd Automotive Group, Streamline Auto. Steve Burke, Agora. Dora Musi, F&I Manager, Germain Toyota. Brian Davis, Orbi. Steve Zabawa with WebBuy. James Lawrence, Sensitive Data. Michael Bolin, Value Shield, Tom Klein, Better Advantage, Tully Williams, and Dennis Gingrich, the Neelio Company. So see you all back here at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check your email for that new link, and I'll see you tomorrow.